And we are live. Good morning. Have another beautiful Saturday here in sunny California. The sun is out. It was a bit cold and foggy earlier, but now things are looking bright. And welcome to another Super Galactic Saturday. This is Jerry Sr., and I'm with Jerry Jr.
Good morning.
And we are live, not just here in the live stream, but our campaign is finally live on fundmycomic.com. Go check it out if you got the time. We'd appreciate your support. We got some great stuff on there right now. We got some stickers. We got T-shirts, and of course, our book, Alphatron Origins Issue number 1, will be available. The goal is to produce approximately 50-page issue 1 about not just Alphatron's origins. It's about the origins of other characters as well. So that's why it's just called Alphatron Origins. But it does focus on our main character, Alphatron, and how he becomes Alphatron. So please check it out. All the info's on our campaign site. And yeah, we hope you like what you see, and we hope that you'll take the time to support us. I know right now, the economy is not great. We're all trying to make do and everything. So, not all of us have disposable income, right? So I really, really do appreciate anyone that offers support. Whatever you can do is appreciated. So please take the time to peruse our site and see, how you want to support us. And we're thankful for it. We're always thankful for it. And there's going to be more. I'm in the process of adding more items. Right now, it's the shirts and stickers, and everyone who purchases, who backs the book, will get a free bookmark, and that's there on the page. You'll see the bookmark there. But also we're going to have some trading cards that's coming, and we're going to have some more stickers. And we're going to have some prints as well from some very talented artists, and you'll see some of their work on there already. And also note that in the offerings, you'll see that there's a cover A. That's by our very talented artist, Denio Viana. He's also our key artist who's doing all of our layout and pages. And then there's a cover B, and that's going to be from another artist, very talented guy, um, Eduardo. I'm not sure what his name is. His online name is Eduardo, Edu Eduardo. So you can find him on Twitter. His handle's on there on the page, so you can look him up. Um, but a very talented guy. He does beautiful work, and he's working on the cover as we speak right now. So what you see there is just a comp. It's the rough of the cover, but even that you can tell it looks awesome. So I'm kind of excited. It's going to be a really cool cover, and it has like most of the characters on there, the Silver Six for sure, and Gabriel, and a couple of bad guys, right? So those are some key bad guys in this first initial story. So but yeah, so check it out, and hopefully you like what you see. We worked real hard on the story. The story is pretty much done, and we just need your help and support to help us bring it over the top and get the artwork done and get it printed and get it in your hands. So please help us out and consider supporting us. And once again, we're thankful. We thank you for it. So every uh, backer is appreciated, and so you hope that you'll take the time to check it out. And yeah, we thank you. So moving on, there's quite a few things we want to talk about today. And you said we're gonna one thing we're gonna talk about, and I didn't mention in the thumbnail, but is we went to the LA Comic Con
Yeah,
last week.
I think that's important.
Yeah, yeah, and it was interesting because it's been a while. I think the last con after 2020 that I went to, the only one actually is WonderCon, right? I believe I went to that one in, was it 21 or 22? Um, and it was good. It was fun. It wasn't very um, well. I'll put it this way: the con itself was, it felt a bit sparse, right? It wasn't a lot of people, and understandably, considering it was post pandemic and all that. Outside was actually more lively because they had the cosplay contest and all that stuff. So there was a lot more activity outside. And I think part of that was because people just preferred to be outside, and and plus, I mean, it was hundreds of cosplayers. Like it was quite amazing. That was actually the treat of the show, was seeing all the cosplay, and because it was just really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but this time at LA Comic Con, a little bit better turnout wise, and but still wasn't as packed like I remember in the in the past, in the recent past. So
I mean, that doesn't really bother me. I think part
yeah,
of
it
that
didn't
is,
bother me either. Yeah,
yeah.
so I don't mind a small crowd just because it's not shoulder to shoulder when you're trying to walk down the aisles and all that stuff. So, but yeah, pre 2020, it was it was jam packed, and but now it was good though. It was still a solid turnout though. It was a lot of people. It was exciting, a lot of excitement. People were nerding out over all the different cosplays, and of course there were celebrities there, voice actors from gaming as well as movies and TV shows doing autograph signings, and
So one thing that we kind of talked about, uh, we touched on it a little bit when we were at there. For context, I went there for 2 days. I was there Friday and Saturday,
yeah,
and my dad obviously met up with me on Saturday.
right,
But so one of the things that uh, that's interesting about Comic Con, and kind of why these cons are so essential, is that it's sort of a, I guess for lack of a better word, it's sort of a litmus test for is uh, what is actually popular and what is actually you know beloved by these fan bases, right?
yeah,
You could because like you could people could tell you online like, oh, this is this hot new thing, but when you're in real life, right, and you're seeing people interact at these booths, right? So for example, there was a lot, like you said, there was a lot of celebrities, and I saw a bunch of familiar faces. Like I got to say hi to the main cast of Ned's Declassified. I don't know if you heard of that show. It's
I
called
don't think
Ned's
so.
Yeah, it was a Nickelodeon show that came on when I was a kid. It's
I
called
was
Ned's
gonna say
Declassified.
yeah, okay,
It's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a diary. It's like a live action diary of a wimpy kid, but he's not a wimpy kid. It's just it's my generation Saved by the Bell, I guess we want to call it.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, and it's this kid's journal and like the perspective, and he's writing like how to survive high school and things like that, or middle school or whatever. So yeah, we got to say hi to Devin Worcester, Lindsay Shaw, and Daniel Curtis Lee. They were Ned, Jennifer, and Simon in the show, and they were cool to talk to.
hmm
But they were really popular. And keep in mind, this show came out in 2007, right? So almost a decade, or excuse me, 2004. So 2 decades ago, right? And
yeah,
people are still like, "Oh, you're from National Classified."
interesting.
But then you saw a lot of other celebrity booths were kind of empty. I think, I don't, and I'm not. This isn't to like I'm not trying to like badmouth people for the sake. I'm just making a point. Like I think there was a voice actor from the uh the the woke episode of South Park. Like
Oh, right,
she was
yeah.
the voice actor for one of the
Oh yeah, I
female
think I saw her. Yeah, I did see her.
counterparts to the main gang.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
There was
there was a few actresses from I guess the Mandalorian series and
yeah,
Book of Boba Fett. They were
yeah.
there.
I
Um,
didn't see too many people interact with those people. Now,
yeah,
if you were there at the Comic Con and you saw otherwise, let me know. But I think
Yeah,
it's
it
I
could
think
have
it's
been.
very telling what is beloved by people and what's not.
Yeah,
And you can
because
make these.
what's interesting is they were right next to the display. You know how they have the Android builders, the
Yeah.
robot builders. And they always come and they have the R2D2s and all the
Oh
different
yeah, yeah, yeah.
from Star Wars, and they were all, and
Yeah,
that was
there
packed.
was more people over there.
Yeah, that was that was like, I mean, I was over there, I was looking at them and check. It's really amazing. It looks
Yeah,
beautiful,
people
and
built
so
like these
yeah,
remote
there was
control
a good crowd
drills.
over there for that, but there was a few, you know, that came to their table, and like I said, it could have been a matter of timing. Like, maybe we missed a big rush. Maybe the first day it was a lot, and then usually Saturday is the bigger day, right? Where you get most, you know,
Oh
most.
no, this was a Saturday.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so that's what I mean. Like, it was a bit. Now they did have autograph signings at a different hall for, I guess, the
That is
quote
true.
unquote
Yeah.
bigger names, right? So for Star Wars, like they were Star Wars.
Hmm.
What's his name? Obi-Wan. I don't know why I can't think of his name.
Oh, the actor who played Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he was supposed to be there, and there's a few others. And because I remember when we walked by, and the security was like, "If you want an autograph, you got to
Uh,
get in line." And
Ewan McGregor.
yeah, Ian McGregor, and it's like you have to, and you have to have a ticket. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that." So, I mean, not that I didn't want an autograph anyway, but I was like, "Oh, so you had to buy a separate ticket for for their autograph."
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That was interesting.
I mean, I figured maybe it's like a meet and greet, like they'll shake your hand, take pictures with you, all that kind
Oh,
of
for
stuff.
sure.
So it's
Yeah.
probably like a lot, you get a lot out of it. But so yeah, so they were completely, a whole different area, right? So I just thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Um, so because I would figure if they're there, even if they're not as well known, why not have them all together? Like, give them a little bit of shine, right? And but that wasn't the case.
No, no, it was not.
So, unfortunately. So
Like I say, it's probably not the actor's fault particularly. It's just those
no,
shows.
that's it. It's not a slight against them at all. I'm just saying.
It's more indicative of the shows they're a part of.
Well,
If
yeah,
that
it's a
makes
point
sense.
that's been made before. I think it was um, man, I can't remember who it was, but it was a great point, and that was that unfortunately a lot of the actors and actresses who are a part of, and you're kind of seeing the same thing in the gaming industry right now, who are a part of some of these IPs that are really bad. They have a bad reputation, because of what's been coined as woke and all this kind of stuff. And it's not always woke. Sometimes they're just bad, right?
Yeah,
Case in point, the recent Joker movie, right? It's just bad. It's not about it being woke or whatever. It's just a bad movie.
yeah,
But it's like the consequences. Well, now you're associated with an IP that is not popular, right? And that's the problem, I think, when it comes to some of the Marvel stuff and the Star Wars stuff, is if you are an actor or actress and you're a part of that. Now, in the industry, it might help, right? Hopefully help you get work because, oh, you were a part of the Disney Star Wars stuff, or right? If you're an agent or you're a talent manager, right, or you're casting, right,
hmm
then it's like, oh, you have experience, and you have experience in a high profile movie or TV show, so that's a plus. Professionally, that's a plus, right? Like, you're gonna hopefully get more roles because of that, right? But at the same time, when it comes to fandom, right, when it comes to just that perception of celebrity, um, you're probably not going to be remembered as easily, right? Um, and even if you are, it's not necessarily going to be in a positive light, right? Because you're associated with something that is a net negative for a lot of fans, and it's unfortunate. It's like we tend to ascribe um, the traits of the IP to the actor that's in the IP versus separating, right?
yeah.
And so if you're an actor or actress and you're part of a very popular, like look at Robert Downey Jr., right? That's a great example of this guy was a alcoholic, drug addict, got arrested many times,
Yeah.
And granted, he was trying to he was trying to rehabilitate himself, but then he gets a role on, as Iron Man, and all that goes away, right?
Right.
Like I don't even think it's hardly mentioned, right? Like it's kind of because we were like, hey, it was a perfect casting. He fit the role great, and he did a great job. And so now we just associate him with Tony Stark, even though in real life he's probably not very much like Tony Stark, right? At least how he's portrayed in the movies, right? He's probably
Right.
not very, especially if you see him in interviews, he seems way more laid back, and especially I would imagine at this juncture in his life, now that he's older, more experienced. Maybe 20 years ago, he was more like, or 30 years ago, right? But, he's definitely a different person. And that's true for, I think, most actors and actresses. They're not the people they portray, right? They are, sometimes completely different people, right? And there's like you look at Denzel Washington in Training Day, right? Do you think Denzel Washington is anything like the character he portrayed?
No. No.
It's like
No.
probably not, right? He's just an excellent actor, right? So, that's it, right? And it's so it's something that but sadly, like that is something we tend, and I'm guilty of it, especially when I was younger. I used to, have that perception, like they're, like Robin Williams used to be my favorite, still is a comedian, actor. And so when I was younger, seeing him on like Happy Days and Mork and Mindy, to me, he was always the same, right? So I thought that's just who he is all the time, right? But
Yeah.
then you see him in a movie like The World According to Garp or Awakenings or Goodwill Hunting, or right? And it's like that's not Robin Williams, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a different guy, right? Because
Yeah.
he's has this dramatic role, and but it's like it just shows. Look, he's an actor, right? And he has this range, and so even when he was Mork from Oric or doing stand up, right? It's like that's a character he's playing, right? It's not who he is, and it's important to make that distinction. And that was one of the things that kind of made me realize that was seeing him, his range, as an actor, realizing, oh yeah, like that's not who he is in real life. Who he is in real life is far more complex and nuanced, right? So,
Right.
and but it's just kind of part of the game, I suppose. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and yeah, it's not their fault,
No. No, it's
and
not.
I don't appreciate if I mean, I think it's just a relatively few people that do this, that
Hmm.
harass the actors and actresses, and, but even when it does happen, it's shameful and it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like you shouldn't hate and belittle an actress or actor because they played a certain part, right? That in an IP that we don't like, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Now if they say or do something that warrants criticism, that's different, right? So
Oh, yeah.
but you
Obviously,
could, yeah, because some have said things, right?
that
And
were terrible.
yeah, that that insulted fans or that was just flat out disrespectful, right? So it's like, look, you're gonna catch heat, you know,
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
that's on you. That's because you did something or said something, right? Not because you played a part. But unfortunately, what happens is there's this sort of disingenuous sort of reaction to the criticism, right? Where
Hmm.
they blame the fan, right? All the fans are negative and they're toxic and they're this whole toxic fandom. It's like there's no such thing as toxic fandom. I'm sorry, but yeah, there is a fan. Like there was a movie years ago, and actually, ironically, starred Robin Williams, where he was like this stalker, like that was a thing way back in like the late '80s or '90s. Like there was a few like high profile cases in real life of celebrities that were being stalked, right,
Right.
by so-called fans. So it does happen, right? But that's the thing; it's rare. It's not something that's common, right? It's not something that where you're talking about hundreds or thousands of fans are literally stalking and harassing this one celebrity. It's like, well, no, like in social media, helps to expand that. So from it goes from one or two creepy fans to perceptively speaking, hundreds or thousands of,
Yeah.
But then what happens is they conflate the few negative comments or inappropriate comments with the actual just criticisms, right? And those criticisms can be wrapped in sarcasm or something or cynicism. And it's like, yeah, you can't equate, someone who just has a flippant attitude about your role, right, as an actor or actress, with someone who literally says defamatory things, right? Like
No, it's
it's
not
not
the
the
same
same
thing.
thing, and those things are not common; they're rare. But it's because they do happen, right? They can take those things and blow them up and say, "Oh, look at what's happening with this toxic fan." It's like, well, no, that's like a handful of people,
Yeah.
out of the millions of Star Wars fans and the millions of Marvel fans, right? Et cetera, et cetera. You're looking at like five people or a dozen.
Right.
Like come on, like that's not. It's this then the inverse is true, right? Where
Yeah.
where it's like they think because there are some quote unquote fans that praise the wokeness, right? Oh, we love the so brave and strong lesbian this and that representation, that on Twitter or something, right? Like, oh man, look at all these posts on Twitter, these hundreds of posts. That's representative of the millions of fans out there. It's like,
Sure. Yeah.
so let's do more of that, right? And it's like, no, that's the wrong way too. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what Hollywood is guilty of as well,
Right.
So
Back
yeah,
to the con though. What was your favorite booth?
my favorite booth. I haven't thought about it. Actually, and I meant to. I need to share this video because it's awesome. I saw it before. Prior to that, someone else shared it. I guess it was some kind of ad. But the Transformers collectible robotic toys.
Oh, I missed
Right?
that one.
Oh my god, it was amazing! Like to see it in real life. Right?
Yeah.
They have the Megatron, and he transforms into a tank. Right?
Nice.
And then of course they had Optimus Prime, and they had a Bumblebee, and they had a Grimlock that
Nice.
transform, and they transform on command. So you
Yeah,
can
you told me about that.
you can tell them to transform. You call their name, then you say transform, and they transform, and it looks amazing. it, it's like you think it's going to be kind of weird and lame or something. It's like no,
Yeah.
it looks spectacular. Like it, it's like you see the cartoons and you see the movies, you see, and you're like, oh, okay, that's awesome, right? But you don't think you can ever see that in real life and have it be awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. In real life, it looks awesome. And I was flipping out, man. I was just standing there like, this is amazing. Like, I never thought I'd see the day where we actually see an actual transformer transform. you know. So the
That's
next
awesome.
step is going to be, real life, true to life size.
Yeah, giant the cars.
Like in Japan, right? They got the giant Gundam, right? Why
That's
can't we
true.
have
Yeah.
a true to life Optimus Prime? You
I
know,
don't think people are ready for that. But
maybe not, maybe not. I don't know. But that was my
uh,
favorite book.
so
Was
two booths that I really like was first off it was one called FISME. FISME stands for Physical Media, and they
okay,
had a booth basically promoting this app that's essentially a sort of eBay, Etsy, Amazon, but strictly for physical media. So if you're a movie collector, right? And or if you're just somebody who is tired of not owning the movies you buy on Netflix,
yeah,
or
yeah.
then FISME is the app for you.
Fizz
It's really great. It's it's really intuitive, and like I said, they it's for people who collect VHSs in mind. So you
right.
can scan your VHS, and then with the app, and it'll like if you have a copy of the VHS, you could scan it in, and you could sell your VHSs if you need to look for a movie. You know, it's got a pretty extensive library. I was pretty impressed at the booth because it felt like I was walking into a Blockbuster, and they had a bunch of really like hard to find VHSs and
Yeah.
just really obscure like stuff. Like they had the Street Fighter 2 movie. They had, of course, the Disney The Volt collection VHS tapes, right? And they had a bunch of like VHS VCRs. Whereas like, didn't we have that in the house at some point? You know, like they were going all in, and it was awesome. One of the tapes I got was like I said, they have really obscure. They had a really obscure collection.
Yeah.
So back in the '90s, game companies would put out, because there wasn't YouTube right yet, so they would put out these promo videos, right, promoting upcoming games,
Mm-hmm.
and with like sneak peeks and interviews and like, oh, this is how we make the graphics, things like that, and like commercials, and they would put them on VHS tapes and send them out to fans, like say if you were subscribed to Nintendo Power,
Right.
and you would get like a VHS tape or something, right? So I found one for Donkey Kong Country called Donkey Kong Country Exposed. Now I haven't watched it yet,
Yeah.
but I believe I've seen some of what's on the tape already on YouTube. And if that's the case, this is a pretty cool find. Because that means somebody won this at like in like a magazine or something, and they just didn't want it anymore. I'm like, this is a piece of like video game history. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff, right? They had like Chinese bootleg tapes. Like when I say this was a true VHS store. Like it felt like, I was going into like the strip mall,
Yeah.
home video store, right, from like the early 2000s. But it was cool. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're big proponents on physical media. They also do DVDs and Blu-ray and stuff like that. So they're really big on promoting physical media and whatnot. So check out FizMe on their website. It's just called fizme.com. That's PHZ, excuse me, me.com. It's really awesome. Another one of my favorite booths was actually the artist that we met when remember the art book that you have? I keep forgetting his name. We talked to him for a while. Remember the art book that you have with the tiger in front?
Sorry, I was muted. My apologies. Gary Montalbano. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Gary Montalbano. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I was like,
saying
don't
it
tell
over
me you
and over. I
forgot
was like,
to.
why doesn't he hear me? Yeah, sorry about that. I hit the mute button by mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary Montalbano. This guy,
Yeah, he was awesome.
is
Yeah.
legendary. He's worked on some of the most iconic shows, like Batman animated series. This guy
The
and this
Memories
stuff
Within
is
Dreams
beautiful.
is the book that he put out. Really good book.
Yeah, it's
Really great art.
gorgeous artwork. I mean, just some of the most. It's like Sid Mead meets I don't know, Salvador Dali. Like it's so surreal and colorful and beautiful and futuristic, and he combines this sort of futurism with nature in a lot of his stuff, right? So like he mentioned the tigers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just beautiful, slick, sleek design. Like it's just gorgeous. So this was my second time meeting him. Actually, I met him before at WonderCon a few years ago.
Nice.
And, we did the exact same thing, but it was me and your brother. And we sat there and
funny.
talked to him for like an hour.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, so we did the same thing this time. So he's met both of my sons now, so it's nice.
Cool.
And but yeah, that was another great booth. Just because it was just like, oh yeah, this stuff is gorgeous, right? So, but yeah, very nice man.
Well, he was also very insightful.
He was and he gave us some great tips. You asked him some great questions about like how to create, this sort of uh, alternate world, right? This fictional world, and he gives a great sort of talk about that, and just shared a lot of insight, into how to approach that as a writer and even as an artist. So
Yeah,
yeah, this guy is like a fountain of wisdom and experience. And
absolutely.
so
That,
yeah,
that was awesome.
I've been in touch with him
There-
since. I've been emailing him and just
oh,
talking,
nice.
chatting it up. But yeah, very nice man. Um,
There
Check
was
him
a
out. His website is GaryMontalbano.com. And yeah, I mean he's worked with, you know, some of the greats in television, movies, so uh, incredibly talented artist, like
oh yeah. There
mind
was
blowingly good.
there was another great booth that was ran by this uh, Japanese guy, and he like collects old prints of different media from Japan, all spanning all the way from like the 1920s up until at least the end of the Showa era. So for
Wow.
those who don't know, that's 1989.
Yeah.
So it's like a Showa museum almost, right? It's like it's got everything between 1926 and 1989, and it's pretty cool actually because like he had copies of different magazines that they had in the 50s.
Hmm.
I didn't want to like it's when it comes to cons, I'm usually pretty good at not spending a lot of money on stuff, but this guy just had everything that I was into in one booth. So it was really hard to like not try to buy everything. But they had this magazine called Movie Pictorial, and it was a magazine where they showed off American movies as well as Japanese movies. It was cool. So like if you flipped one side of the magazine, it would be in English. It would show the current popular American actor or Western actor, and if you flip them the back, it showed the popular Japanese movie or Japanese actor. So it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool magazine. Um, uh, they also had just straight up Japanese World War II propaganda, like
Yeah.
flyers and posters and stuff like that.
Right.
Like it was a museum. Like I'm not
Okay.
the guy's not like a nice
I
example.
know, but
He,
yeah,
he
it's part
he
of history.
collects everything. Like
Yeah.
he had everything.
Yeah. I
He
mean,
had like
part of history.
journals from like journals from like World War I and stuff like that. Yeah, it was amazing. It was kind of disappointing because like he did have anime and stuff, and it seemed like everybody was more focused on like the anime stuff in his booth, and
Yeah.
like the side with like because on the other side behind the anime stuff, he had like kimonos and Japanese suits and medals from the different ranks and just like I said, it's just actual history. And it's like it was just me and then one other dude just looking at this stuff, and we were talking about oh what we were like discussing
Yeah.
dates
But
and
you're
whatnot.
you're a history uh, addict.
A history addict. I feel like that's called being well informed.
Well, I mean, however you want to phrase it, sure.
I feel like
But let's get to some of these comments. Welcome, Rasmain. Welcome back. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining us. Um, Going back to
oh
Robin
yeah, I did.
Williams.
I did post that earlier. Yeah.
I've heard it said that comedians make some of the best dramatic actors, but I don't know. Maybe the comedians are the ones who said. Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably do. But I mean, I would agree. I think comedians, um, they sort of represent the range of acting, right? Like from that's why the symbol for theater, right, is the face, the drama
Yes.
face, and the comedic face. Right?
Comedy and tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's what a comedian represents. The comedian takes tragedy and turns it into comedy, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and Robin Williams to me represented that probably the best out of anyone in my generation. I think I can't think of anyone who is maybe there's someone I haven't thought of, but that just had that range where he could be incredibly funny, but also incredibly dramatic, and just have this depth about it, his character. So yeah, man, the guy to me was a legend. So despite his life and the unfortunate way he left us, he was a great actor. So overall,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm with you on that. Um, and he says, on a personal level, I wish Rosario Dawson had stayed out of Star Wars. I mean, this is the thing, though, right?
Who?
For Rosario Dawson, she played
Oh,
Ashoka,
that's right.
and it's supposed to, aren't they coming out with an Ashoka series, right? She was in The
I mean,
Mandalorian for a bit.
there was already a
And,
Ahsoka series.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I didn't watch it. So
Clearly.
I think this is the thing. It's like what's his name? I forgot his name. Um, well, it's like The Rock, right? Playing Black Adam, right? It's like fans, a lot of fans were like, yeah, that'd be awesome. He'd be perfect. And then we get it and it's like, yeah. And I think part of that is because A, the movie was kind of mediocre, but B, it was probably too late, right? It should have happened like a decade prior.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with Rosario Dawson. By the time they decided to cast her, it's like, sure, she would have been great. A lot of people was floating around the internet for a while that she would be a great cast, right, for that character. But then by the time you cast her, she's already what, like in her 40s or something, or you understand, like it's not the same, and it doesn't have the same, you know, I don't
Hmm.
know, you're kind of, and then especially after the Book of Boba Fett, that was, I don't even want to talk about that.
I haven't seen that.
And it wasn't great. And
Uh,
but in a few other shows, right? It's kind of like, yeah, Obi-Wan, all that stuff. So yeah, it loses its luster, right? Um, and then like the show itself, you know, it was like you're watching a bunch of, well, I don't. It wasn't great. I'll just leave it at that. It didn't have the impact that it could have had they casted her in a younger, her younger
mhm.
self. But I agree. I wish he hadn't. And then generally, I like Rosario Dawson. I think she's great. She's beautiful. But yeah. So then he says, the entertainers never should have directly communicated with us on social media. But that ego. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with them communicating, but the problem is they don't keep it professional, right? They get personal, and that's
Well, I
where it
mean,
starts
that's
to, like I think take a lesson from people like William Chat, right? He doesn't tend to get political, right? He's on Twitter and all this, and he keeps it pretty fun and simple. I haven't seen him comment or say anything like he just keeps things kind of general. He enjoys it. I think it's great. I think that's probably the best way to approach it, right? Instead of like George Takai, it's like you know.
I
And
couldn't hear you that.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Or like Mark Hamill, who's same thing, very outspoken. And look, they have a right to be outspoken. That's their prerogative. We're supposed to be in a country.
Oh, it's not just me. You're you said
What
you're
happened?
roboting.
What does that mean? My
Your
voice
sound
sounds
dropping.
robotic. It's dropping. Can you hear
Yeah.
me now?
Yeah. It's more
Okay, I don't know.
consistent now.
Okay, that's weird. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why that's happening. I'll figure it out. But to finish my point, I agree, but then you know, um,
Well, it's a matter of it's like I mean the difference between old Hollywood and new is and I guess if you want to call it the golden age, right? Everything was sort of actors' responses were sort of curated. Like if that's something you want, it's like the actors have to be like sort of monitored and 24/7, and like they can't really like they're not allowed. You have to not let them say what exactly what they want to say, right? I mean, that was kind of the allure of classic Hollywood actors, is that if they did get into trouble, you didn't know about it because you know, the studios wouldn't let newspapers publish it because they wanted to protect the image of the actor, um, right? But thanks to the internet and TV, right? Before
Yeah.
the internet, it's like the gap between um, civilian, just for a lack of a just to make a point, and actor, it's the gap started to close, right? And then with the internet, it's like it's gone. It's virtually indistinguishable, or it's just
Yeah.
not there. So I mean, that's a big part of that. And I mean, yeah, you don't want to, it may suck that back then, actors weren't allowed to say what they wanted to say, but at the same time, it's like part of,
Well, I mean, even now there's still moral clauses and things like that in their contracts. See, the problem isn't that they're not allowed, right? The problem is they're encouraged to say the things they're saying, because it aligns with the current Zeitgeist, right?
oh, sure, yeah, yeah,
And which is, anti-traditional, anti-Christian for sure, anti-God. And so, as long as you align with the current day social justice talking points, the current day political talking points, that's generally speaking is pro big government, then you're fine. You're not going to be discouraged from saying what you want to say in your piece, as long as you're lambasting a conservative, or you're lambasting some type of traditional perception, right, or value. I mean, a case in point is Gina Carano, right? Um, she literally posted something that made pretty much the not the same point, but a very powerful point about not ending up going down the same road as Nazi Germany, right? In relation to how we treat each other and how we, perceive one another politically. And she gets fired, basically fired for it, right?
right,
But then, not, I think it was either just before or not long after, Pedro Pascal posts something. He literally calls Trump supporters, you know, Hitlerian, right? Like they're like supporting Hitler. Like, you understand, like Nazis, you know.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, wait a minute.
yeah.
So, and nothing happens. Like, there's no correction. There's no, like, they don't. Disney doesn't distance themselves and say he does not represent nothing, right? It,
Hmm.
everything, keeps moving smoothly. But Gina Carano, and there's statements about, well, her views do not represent the company, blah blah blah. Then they basically reprimand her, and then they fire her. And it's like, well, what? Right? Like, her point was far more substantial and substantive than his, because she wasn't calling anyone that name, right? She wasn't calling anyone. She was saying, "Hey, let's take a lesson from history, and let's not repeat the mistakes that was made." Right?
So the
That's what
problem
that
with
was the
that,
point of her post,
yeah, but
versus
the
Pedro
problem with
Pascal was literally just insulting half of the country.
right, but the problem with that, and this isn't something that I personally believe, but is most people, um, a lot of, I'd say a lot of people believe that, subscribe to the idea that if you're, uh, I guess is the word bipartisan. If you're bipartisan, you're just a, quote unquote, conservative in disguise or something silly like that. So you can't, like, it's
You
there's
mean if
no,
you're a well balanced, even killed person who, objectively observes the points of other
yeah,
people and
yeah, I
tries
know,
to
I
be
know,
fair.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
silly,
that's very
it's
strange.
dumb, and
You're a
it's
conservative.
psychopathic. I
Yeah,
I
you're a
agree.
right wing extremist because you
You're
don't
just
want to, you know, I don't know, transition 5 year olds. Like, what? That makes no sense. That's not logical at all. But yeah, that's so. you know, so those things still exist, right? And that's why Disney could, in their minds, right, legally fire her, right, because well, you violated our moral clause or something like that, right? And it's like, oh, okay, but it's selective, right? It's obviously hypocritical and selective, so you know, um, they're going to ignore one and favor one over the other because one aligns with their pre-existing views. It aligns with like I said, the Zeitgeist, at least within Hollywood, within the industry, and and even in government, unfortunately, right? It's the prevailing view, and so yeah, that's kind of what's happening, and it's unfortunate, you know. But I think the tide is changing a bit, so we'll see how it goes. Rosmain says, I think Disney wanted to use Gina Carano's physicality for a non binary representation to the public, and she wasn't going to do that. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Um, I know that. I mean, when you say that, that makes perfect sense. It's like,
Kind
yeah,
of
let's
weird.
take. Well, it makes sense
I mean,
because
I get what he's saying, but
yeah, she's this MMA fighter, and look, she's you know she's in good shape, right? Like, what I mean? Like, but and there's a scene in the Mandalorian. It's funny. I had that thought when I first saw the Mandalorian, where he tracks her down or whatever, and then she like kind of ambushes him. They have a fight, right? And she kind of almost takes him out, right? And I was kind of like, yo, But then I was like, well, I mean, she is a fighter. Like, she's trained. She's a good sized woman. Like, she's strong. It's kind of like, okay. I mean, I don't, and I suspected, like, I wonder if they're trying to portray her like that, like she's gonna be this sort of, trans or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, non-binary something, right? This homogeneity, right, that they're always trying to go for. And so that's a good point, Ross. I mean, that's probably what they intended to do. And then, but her public declarations, right, which showed that she doesn't necessarily go along with that, right? And and
yeah,
we've seen since then that she's very traditional. She comes from a traditional family, so that's not even in her wheelhouse per se, right? So they couldn't do it, and then maybe that post, and because I think it was more than just the post, it was a couple of posts where like she didn't acknowledge pronouns or something like that, or she wouldn't put her pronouns or something like that, right? Something silly, and I think that was where they were like, yeah, we can't mold her into what we want. She's gonna resist, so let's get rid of her, right? Like she's throwing a monkey wrench in our plans, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's very insightful, actually. That was probably the intention of whoever her you know direct handlers and higher ups and all that stuff that was working with her. No doubt that was the goal. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So, and once again, like I said, it's unfortunate, but um, yeah, these it's if we keep going, we're going to end up in like what's considered conspiratorial territory, right? Because I don't believe it's by accident. I think it is purposeful, um, and intentional, right? But I think also it's not giving them the results they expected or that they wanted, right? Like they yes, they want to propagandize a certain agenda, right? But they also probably expected it to actually work where they would be profitable and it would shift society a certain way where now it's actually in demand, right? That didn't happen. So it'll be interesting going forward what the landscape looks like, right, as a consequence. Because you would think they'll learn their lesson. I don't think they have. I think they're going to keep doubling down. I mean, just recently, what they released a stormtrooper that's non-binary or something like that, or has
wait,
pronouns.
what are you talking about?
Disney.
What?
Uh,
Oh.
there's a I forgot the name of the stormtrooper. I think it's called Sister or something like that. And
What?
yeah, and it's non-binary or something. It has pronouns. It's like
What is
okay,
what is the context of this?
I don't know. I haven't delved that deep. I've just seen posts about it, and I'm kind of like, that's stupid. So because it's a military, right? In the military, they do strive for homogeneity, right? So
Yeah,
if you're a soldier, you're soldier number 3256 AB, right? Like you don't have an identity.
yeah, yeah,
Like so,
yeah.
and especially something as tyrannical as an authoritarian as the Empire, right? The Galactic Empire in Star Wars. There's a reason why the stormtroopers are just men in white armored suits, right? Like there's no faces, they don't call each other
What
by a
was it called?
name.
The Clone Wars?
It's like they're literally, that's the point, right? They don't have an idea. There's no individuality. So it's like it makes no sense just on that level right there. It's completely absurd, right? It's like what's the point of this? Like who is this for? Like it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's like what? So I mean, unless this stormtrooper is gonna like a Finn, right? Like Finn rebelled. Finn said, "I'm not gonna be this clone, this robotic soldier, right? I can't do it. My conscience won't allow me." And he breaks away and escapes, right? That's great. Like maybe they're gonna do that somehow. I don't know. If they do that, then it's kind of like okay, well, there's a story there. Then okay, I mean that seems valid, I suppose. But if that person remains a stormtrooper, it's like then what?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
makes no sense. So unless they're doing it and they're hiding it somehow, and maybe that's the story is they're hiding what they really are from the Empire. I don't know. But yeah, it seems pretty dumb. So, but yeah, like I said, they're just doubling down. You know, they're not going to stop anytime soon. So that's why we're here. That's why so many other creators out there doing their thing and trying to make something happen. But they call it parallel economy, right? Yeah, it's not just a parallel economy. It's just the economy. It's an expansion of the economy, right? It's a decentralization of the economy, specifically with entertainment, right? Um, is it's so I don't even see it as parallel because I think it's just offering more choices, right? Um, and yeah, you can say it sort of diverges away from each other, right? So that's why it's parallel. But I don't honestly don't think there's an economy in the mainstream. I think it's subsidized
Well, if
through
the
debt.
economy requires a demand.
Right, that's my point. It's subsidized through debt, right? There, you have very savvy financiers, executives, etc., who understand how to leverage their IPs, and they already have a foundation that they're banking on, right? So that gives them a lot of good faith. Although I think that's running out, right? So they still have the classics, right? They still have. Speaking specifically of Disney, but even other studios, right? And so they're that's what's propping them up. And but eventually that good faith and it's just gonna kind of go the way of the dinosaur. It's not gonna be enough to finance the future endeavors that they want to do, right? So and that's where the parallel economy, like I said, the extension, the decentralization is what's happening where now there's more options, right? And better options, right? So now I believe people, thanks in large part to the internet, to access through social media, especially Twitter, X.com, I'll put it that way. Um, and I'm hoping and there's others, there's other platforms. I'm hoping those other platforms like Rumble will go beyond just politics, right? And actually encourage just general creativity. Just get people on there that are producing really cool, awesome, fun engaging content, right? Same with Odyssey, right? And I think Odyssey is definitely trying to do that. They're trying to do a decentralized version of, sort of the video platform, right? Like YouTube, but just decentralized. So more power to them. And we need way more than that. Like you just need more and more of those platforms that's just saying, we don't need Hollywood, right? We don't need the gatekeepers. We just need to be free, right? And anyone can jump on and just do their thing, and hopefully they'll find an audience, right? So that's our hope with our campaign and everything. So we hope you'll support us and support other independent creators that are out there, because we're trying to do something great, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. For me, it's me saying, man, I want to see more of what I grew up watching, what influenced me, and what I loved and inspired me. And I haven't seen a lot of that in the last couple of decades. Very few, very little. It's some, it's out there somewhere, but it's not a lot, especially in the U.S. market. And so I want to bring that back. I want to inspire others to bring it back and to engage with it and have fun, right? So yeah. Um, I hope you'll support us, and help us, and be entertained, and invest in entertainment that doesn't hate you, that doesn't resent you, that's not trying to indoctrinate you or propagandize you. We're just trying to make you laugh, maybe cry a little bit, and take you on a ride and inspire you. That's really it, you know. Um, so Rosmain says, yes, the Sister Clone Trooper is a few years old novel character that is getting attention this past week because the character is going multimedia or into the game. Ah, I see. So it's been around a bit. Okay, I see. And now they're kind of giving it its glow up, I guess, right? All right, interesting. So it's going into a game. All right. Yeah, no, I've seen some posts about it, but like I said, I haven't dug deep into it because I'm like, I'm kind of tired of the whole pronoun stuff. Like it's just getting to be too much. Um, so, but yeah, a transgender member of the Jango Fett clone troopers. Interesting. Oh, I see. So it's Jango Fett. Got it. Got it. So it's not the Empire specifically. Okay, that makes a lot of more sense then. Okay. So and that's what I was saying. Like if it's something where they're not part of, you know, the actual Empire, it's like okay, like they leave or they escape or whatever. It's like okay, so that sounds more interesting at least because then it's like oh, so maybe they were an official stormtrooper, but then they left, and but they maintain that identity for some reason as a stormtrooper, whatever. So that's interesting. All right. Um, I'm going to contribute to your FMC after the show when I can focus on what I want. I appreciate it, Rosamane. Thanks for the support, man. And I hope you find something you like. And keep coming back because, like I said, I'm adding even more stuff. I'm going to add some trading cards and some posters. So come back like tomorrow or during the week. You'll see that there's more options as well. So, but yeah, please support and thank you so much. We really really appreciate it, man. So we're trying to do something great. So join us for the ride, man. So thanks. So, I said some goodies on. Yeah, man, check it out, man. Some great stickers, some cool art, and like I said, there's more to come. So get something now, but then come back later, get some more. So awesome, thanks, man. So, but moving on, you wanted to talk about the the
Oh, you're talking about the Lord of the Rings? Oh, okay.
yeah,
So,
uh,
so we saw the
it's a,
trailer.
yeah, it's an animated. Is it a series or is it a movie?
It's a movie. So we
Oh,
we saw the trailer not too long ago. We covered it. So I was under the impression that it was an original story that they were building off of, but apparently not. This is based off of the Legend of. Now, I guess for context, I'm not the biggest Lord of the Ring guy, so any Lord of the Ring fans, feel free to correct me where I'm wrong. But
You're wrong.
it's
I'm just kidding.
but it's based off of the legend of Helm Hammerhand. Now, I'm only vaguely familiar with him because he was covered. He's featured a lot in the Two Towers in Lord of the Rings. Two Towers. You see a lot of statues of him in Hornburg
Yeah,
and stuff like
that's who
that.
the like Helm's Deep is named after, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's also in a couple of video games. So he's a well-known, part of the legends of the Lord of the Rings lore and stuff like that. He was the ninth king of Rohan, stuff like that. And so his story is famous in the context of that world. So I didn't know that. I didn't realize that before. But the thing is that in the trailer, they make it seem like halfway through the trailer, they put a lot of focus on his daughter as being the main character, when in the original story,
Mm-hmm.
the daughter character doesn't even have a name.
Really?
Like, she's not even like, she's in, and shout out to the YouTuber's name is Disparu, was where I found this out.
Yeah, I like this for it. Yeah.
So she only shows up in like I think a couple of paragraphs in the story, and she doesn't even have she's not even a named character. So the movie, I'm thinking to myself, why would they take? That's like if they made a movie about Don Quixote, but instead of focusing on Don Quixote, the movie was from the perspective of I don't know, some guy at the inn or Dulcinea, like someone who only shows up,
some background character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's you know what I'm saying? So it's like, why? It's like, it doesn't. Why would they do that? Like, now I know why they did, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you start to understand why, fans of Lord of the Rings are upset. And it's like, because it's like they're taking these established stories and then making them into things that they're not. Now, granted, the trailer still looks good, but it's like also like, well, it's like, well, it's not. This is. I don't even remember the girl's name in the trailer, but it's like, why would they? I mean, it's like, this isn't your story. This is King Hammerhand's story, But and so I didn't realize.
Who was it? I was watching. I think it was Critical Drinker, and a lot of people don't like Critical Drinker, which kind of surprised me because I like Critical Drinker a lot. I really love his video commentary, his movie reviews, all that stuff.
I mean, I don't dislike him. I mean, I disagree with him on certain
fair enough.
Critiques, but like I don't hate him. There's just nothing for me to hate him for.
I love the guy. I think he's great.
I think he's pretty honest.
I think so. I think he's honest, and I think he tries to be fair.
Yeah.
And I don't get a sense of being inauthentic, right?
Yeah. Like, I don't disagree with all his movies. I don't agree with all his movie takes, but the ones I do is like,
I don't always agree. Sometimes I'm like, I kind of like that, whatever.
Like I think he said something about I don't agree with his take on Godzilla. Just because
-1.
I think he
Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, because as someone who's watched, I haven't watched all of them, but I've watched different generations of Godzilla movies, and Godzilla has always been simultaneously campy and serious. Like, he could be both.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree with that. I mean,
and because I know he was more critical to Godzilla X Kong than he was to -1, because Godzilla X Kong was more of
it's a goofy movie.
But that's what makes it awesome. Like
Right, I
they're
agree. But
great
I think,
movies for different reasons.
but in his defense, I think that's the point he was making, though, is that it isn't a movie you're supposed to take seriously. It is entertaining, but yeah, it does have elements of it that's just not good, right? Mainly the human element. The human characters aren't
Oh, yeah, the
interesting
human
characters.
characters suck. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
and
But
that's all.
I.
That's
But
really
that's
the big
not.
point
But
that he was making, was like, why are they there? Like, it's just like, all the previous movies too. Like, we don't care about the human characters, and not because they shouldn't be there, but because they do a poor job of giving them a meaningful story, right?
yeah,
Versus you look at Godzilla minus one, and it does the exact opposite, right? It gives us human characters that we're like, yo, we love these characters, right? We're rooting for them. They resonate with us,
yeah.
right? They have a compelling story, and it's all wrapped into this Godzilla movie. So Godzilla is still awesome and epic, right? He's this force of nature. And then you have these characters that are brave and courageous and daring and sacrificial and endearing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a perfect balance. And that's all. I think that's really the contrast, is that why aren't we trying to do that in the West when we have, because they was it
I think
legendary?
they tried with the first two movies and then they
I
gave
think
up.
so. Right. I agree. I think they tried, and but it just
Because
fell flat.
I still think the second. I still think King of Monsters is objectively the best film. But
I agree. I think so too. I think King of the Monsters is definitely the best out of the franchise, so the modern
yeah.
franchise so far.
So for that with Critical Drinker, yeah, I just
Yeah,
I
fair
hear where he's
enough.
coming from, but I
But
think
but
both
but what
movies
what
are.
I was saying though is he made a point about actually I forgot what I was going to say. You threw me off. It's all your fault.
What are you this was my point.
No, no,
But
no. He was saying, what he was saying was the character. What's how do you pronounce it?
which one? The King?
Rihir, no, the movie Rihir
Oh, War of Rohirrim.
Rihirim. Yeah, it's like she's supposed to be a princess, but she's a warrior. And like, but there are like male characters. Like there's a prince. There's, you know what I mean, that can
Yeah,
fight these battles, but for some reason only she can fight these battles and win.
yeah.
Like
It's
it
yeah,
makes no sense, right? It's like your role is to, and that's the whole point, right? It's clear the subtext is to defy the prescribed role, and it's like, well, rather than defy it or deconstruct it, why not celebrate it? Why not write a story about how in her role as a princess, that somehow her character prevails in the midst of great temptations and challenges, right? And why does she have to be this super badass girl boss warrior? You see what I mean? Like, it's like, and it's like that's just become so kind of tired now, right? To subvert, right, traditional roles, and subvert, traditional values, rather than celebrate them. We want to, they want to deconstruct. And it's like, well, why though? It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, because it's different if you're writing a story where, like, a good example is Gina Carano's movie that she did with the Daily Wire. I can't remember the title, but I remember the premise was she was, they're homesteading on it's like early, Western America, whatever, right, Southwest, and they're on the prairie, and I think it's called that, something on the Danger on the Prairie, something like that. But
mhm.
where she's a mom, she has a baby, her husband, he's out there working hard, and he has to go away to find work or something like that, So she's alone for an extended amount of time. And while she's alone with this baby, danger lurks, right? These bandits come, and they try to, like, take over her homestead somehow. I'm not sure, but it's like that. In that sense, she becomes a badass girl boss, right? Why? Because it's like she has to, right? There's no one else. She has to. She has to fight. So she has to get her gun. She has to, But thankfully, she learned how to shoot. Maybe her husband taught her, maybe her father, or whatever. But it's like she has to take on this role as protector now, right, to protect her home, right? So, but she's still a mom. She's still a wife. She's still a woman. You understand? And none of that gets sacrificed for the sake of the story. It's like she's all those things plus now she's protector, right? And that's all I'm saying. It's like instead of doing that where she retains her role in this, it seems like, and like I said, I'm just going by the trailer, but it seems like she's subverting her role, right? She's like rejecting. "Oh, I don't want to be this princess where I have to get married and carry on the monarchy and have babies and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to. That's not. I want to be a warrior. It's like, okay, um, that's not natural, but like it's illogical. It makes no sense. Um, yeah. So, and that's what it appears to be. And he made that point. Like, it's like, why are you doing that when, like, your role, your traditional role is just as essential and important. You know what I mean? And that's part of their problem too. It presumes that to be a mother, to be a wife, to carry on, your family name, by having children, that somehow that's less than being this quote unquote girl boss, right? And this it's terrible messaging, right? It's like it's not true. It's not only is it more important than you being a girl boss, it's the one of the most important. It's the reason why men go out, fight, and die. Like, and no one really talks about that, but it's like that's a huge reason why men like. And going back to Godzilla minus one, right? What happens, right? The men step up, right? Because the government's abandoned them, right? And all they have is their resources, their connections, their right. And some are soldiers, some are civilians, some are former soldiers, and they come together and they say, "Look, we need to protect our homeland. Why? Not to protect the so-called patriarchy and all this nonsense, right? To protect their families, their wives, and their children, right? So that they can have a future."
Yeah.
So it's like it's such an irony, right? To deconstruct a role of mother and wife, right, and caregiver, and diminish it into something that is seemingly meaningless, and in place of, oh, you need to be a girl boss, you need to be out there, and you need to control your destiny and all this kind of nonsense, right? You need to go fight men, and it's like, well, but that role is so essential to the point that men are willing to fight and die for it, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, but we completely ignore that reality. Like, that's literally why men go and fight, is to say, I want to protect my wife and my children at home, right? I want to keep this danger from them. And it's frustrating because we want to encourage those things, right? And it's not about forcing people into some kind of box, right? It's really about freeing up people, liberating people to be what they're meant to be, right? I think what's happening is the opposite. I think with the current cultural climate, it's like you're forcing people to resist being what they are naturally. You're forcing women, and I'm not saying women are physically being forced, but it's like the culture around them is encouraging them. Don't be what you feel. Don't be what you know you are inside. Be this thing that we're telling you you should be, right? And same with men. Don't be a masculine, strong, intelligent man. Be this soft, gentle, emotional man, because that's what you're supposed to be. Don't be aggressive. Don't learn how to fight. Don't learn how to protect yourself. Don't learn how to fire a weapon properly. Right. Don't do all these things that are masculine, because masculinity is bad, right? And even though that completely contradicts what your innate desires are as a man, right, or as a woman, right? It's like that's what we are, and then we live and express those things naturally through culture or through society. But when the culture is working against you, right? Well, we kind of see what's happening, right? We get what we're seeing today. So, and that's kind of why I'm kind of going in on some of these things, because it does matter, right? you may not think it matters. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just a cartoon." It's just sure. It's always just a whatever, right? Just a movie, just a cartoon. And then, but if it's that cartoon times 100, times 1,000 over the course of a decade, right? Um,
Yeah.
and your young kids are watching it, your older kids are watching it, then they watch it as it's like eventually it influences their thinking, their mindset, their worldview, right?
It's funny. I remember watching Fist. I know I talk about it a lot, but I remember watching Fist of the North Star, and in the second arc, you get introduced to two characters. One is Ray, and the other is Mamiya. Yeah, and Mamiya, she's like, it's post-apocalyptic world, and Mamiya, her parents, her dad was the leader of the village they're in, but he was killed by bandits, and she's the only child. She became the de facto leader, and you could see throughout the show that the burden of being a leader is is it's like spiritually, like it's hurting her, right? Her brother died. Her brother gets killed,
Hmm.
uh, and like she doesn't want to grieve because she doesn't want to seem weak in front of everybody else. And then she finds out that, oh well, he only left the village to pick strawberries because it was her birthday that day. She completely forgot about her birthday, and you know, things like that. It's like, and at one point, it's like, she literally says, I gave up being a woman a long time ago, and she's not. It's just, she has to be the boss of the village, but like it's like
Yeah, but
it's
that's
seriously
it's,
draining.
but it's presented as what it is. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, and
You
so
understand?
Ray
I mean,
comes
that's,
along.
that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ray comes along, and he's kind of a jerk at first because he's literally, but like they like fight in like he's like spying on her, and they have a fight, and you find out that Ray is actually trying to look for his sister that was kidnapped by bandits, and and he there becomes this love triangle between Kenshiro, Mamiya, and Ray. But what ends up happening later on is that Ray, um, and they end up killing the leader of the bandits that end up, what's it called, that were terrorizing the village,
Hmm.
but also, uh, B, through a series of events, Ray is slowly dying, and he wants to go out, in a blaze of glory. And he finds out that at some point that Mamiya was uh, well, I mean, there's no nice way to put it. She was a sex slave to this other tyrant, and so he's like, "This is awful. I'm gonna go kill him, and that's gonna be my gift to you is justice." Because his whole thing is his nickname is the Star of Justice, right?
Yeah.
And he wants to, take he wants to avenge Mamiya for taking away, you know, a woman. She was raped. It's awful, and he does. He kills him, and it's really sad. And because it's the last thing he does. He kills the guy who hurt Mamiya, and they had a thing together, but and they never got to really, you know, you know, she confesses to her at the last her feelings at the last minute while he's dying, and it's really sad. It's one of the saddest moments in the series, and it's like, you know, here's this, and it's like, but yeah, it's like you said earlier. It's like being a leader, right? It's taxing. It's it's not easy, and it's like, you know here's this woman, and she has to deal with, like I said, her father, her parent, mom and dad dying. Her brother is dying, and she's not allowed to be vulnerable because everybody looks up to her, and it's like, here comes this person who sees all that and tries to do right by you by saying, hey, you know, uh, be the woman you're meant to be. And at the end of the series, and at the end of the whole arc, we see her in the future, and she sort of, she used to carry like these ninja weapons and stuff like that, but we see that she, after that series of events, like she kind of like retired, and like, she's just a normal person now. She's a lot happier, and obviously she still takes care of the village and stuff like that, but in a
Yeah.
different capacity. And there's other
Right.
characters like
Right.
that in Fist of the North Star. Like, a lot of people, and it really pisses me off because a lot of people focus on like the hyper like violence and stuff like that. But there's so much more to the show.
Yeah.
There's this old woman in Fist of the North Star, and she basically, she adopts kids whose parents were killed either during the war or by bandits, and 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 you know, she's she we found out that she raised one of the main characters, Bart, the kid with the pink hair that follows Kenshiro around. You found out that she raised Bart, and they kind of they kind of bicker at each other, but they know they love each other, but they're kind of assholes to each other because Bart is he's a snarky preteen, and she's an old lady. She's sort of a crashy old lady, but when she dies, it's like it affects everybody because she left kids behind,
Right.
so it's like it's a big deal. You know, it's like she sacrificed a lot because she has no family of her own. So it's like there's so many really like touching characters, and
But the whole point is they're not trying to diminish or deconstruct femininity.
no.
They're trying to in a way accentuate it, to say, look at what happens when you're not in the role you're supposed to be in because of external forces, because of tragedy, because of an obligation, right? And that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like it's one thing to tell a story, to create that contrast. Like I said, like Gina Carano's movie, right? It creates that contrast. Like, okay, yeah, she's a mom and a wife, and homemaker and all that. But it's like at the same time, it's like, well, she has to step up because, well, the husband's not there. And even if he was there, because of the circumstances, they probably would have both been fighting and, in the shootout, right? You understand what I'm saying? But it's like, that's the whole point. It's like, it's not about diminishing the role. It's about saying, this is an interesting contrast, right? Look what happens in a world that's imperfect, right? Sometimes you have to operate beyond your specifications, right? Beyond your role. And that is reality,
Yeah.
But what happens with other stuff like this war of Rihirim, whatever how you say it, they're not saying that. They're not saying she has to, like she doesn't have to, because there's men there who are doing it, right? They're trying to say, well, she's special because she's female, right? And that's the problem. Is it's like, yeah, that's kind of nonsensical, right? It's like, let's get you're not special just because you're a man or just because you're a woman. You're special because of what you do, right? Because of what you believe, what drives you, right?
Yeah. But to that point, but this is the last thing I'll say on Fist of the North Star. I just, it's a great show, but
Fist of the North Star junkie.
Whatever. But to that point, one of my favorite scenes is the bandits is same story arc. The bandits, they come, take over the village, and literally it's a Shadrach Meshach Abednego situation where the overlord's like, bow to me, we're gonna throw you in this furnace. Like they literally build a furnace, and like one of the first people to step up that they kidnapped is the little girl. Her name's Lynn. She's another one of the kids that follow Kensho around,
Right.
and she's like, submit to me, we're gonna throw you in the fire. And she's like, no, if Kensho's not scared of you, then I'm not either. Keep on, she's like a little 10-year-old girl. And she walks away. She walks into the fire.
Wow.
She's like, I'd rather die. I'm gonna walk. She literally walks towards the fire, and she gets saved by the last minute. But literally, it was her defying this giant fat dude who could breathe fire. And it's like, no, I'm not gonna submit to evil. And then all the villagers were like, what are we doing? This little girl just defied who are we? And then they take up, arms, and they start fighting.
That's the whole point, right?
And she didn't have to throw a punch; she just had to be brave.
Right. She had to be brave. She had to be a little girl who isn't supposed to be, who shouldn't have to be brave in that manner, right? That's the point. You understand? It's like we were talking about that the other day about how you see a lot in Japanese media where they use extreme contrast, right, to tell their stories, to make the story more compelling. So you'll see a lot of like young girls who are like super powerful and they're fighting these giant demon beasts, and and it looks kind of cool and awesome, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point, right? They're trying to create that dichotomy, right, where it's like, yeah, of course, in reality, we're not going to see this 12-year-old girl go up against some 8-foot muscle bound beast, right? And win, right? Like, that's not going to happen. But it's fun to see, to see the contrast. And they do a good job of expressing that in their storytelling. So, but yeah, it's like once again, they're not trying to deconstruct femininity, right? They're still celebrating it, right? Sometimes to an extreme, but they do, right? And that's the beauty of it. And that's all I'm saying is some of these properties, you can see that they're not really trying to celebrate masculinity or femininity. They're trying to deconstruct it and denigrate it, right? Rosmain says, the animation looking good is how they get you. Yeah, because it does look good. It looks really nice. Like the animation is top notch. It's beautiful, and I'm a big animation guy. I love animation. So he said, "Be something I can control." Yeah. Well, that's the irony of that attitude, though, is you can control. You still have control as a wife and a mother. And a caregiver. Like you're not losing some kind of control, right? It's about cooperation, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not about losing your autonomy. But that's how it's painted all the time. When people talk about femininity in relation to masculinity, that somehow they're opposing forces, and they're not. They're complementary forces, right? They work in parallel and in tandem, not against each other. But our current modern, and I would say postmodern, philosophies, etc., worldviews paints it as if they have to work against each other. Like we're just opposites. But then, ironically, then they try to say, well, no, we're all the same, right? A woman can do everything a man can do, and a man can, men can have babies, all that kind of nonsense. And it's like you can't have it both ways. That's number one, right? And it's like, and neither are true, right? It's like, well, no, we're different, but we're not opposite, and we're complementary, right? And that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it works naturally. So, but yeah, that's the general, attitude. And yeah, you make a good point. It's an overcorrection. Yeah, I think in some cases that is it. It's the idea of saying, hey, let's give some credence to female characters that are heroic and brave, um, but yeah, I think in some instances it is just an overcorrection where they go too far with it, not maybe not realizing it, because sometimes it's not the original storyteller, author, whatever that where that was their intent, right? But then, like I said, Hollywood gets a hold of it, and it
Well, that's the
becomes that.
thing is that there are female like heroes in Lord of the Rings, or at
Right,
least
they
there's
are,
one
yeah,
that I
and
think of. Yeah,
they're great. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they're great, but they never cease being females, right? Like that's what I'm saying. They're the way they're portrayed isn't about them fighting the patriarchy or something, or resisting it's really not about that at all. And that's what I'm saying. But there tends to be this undertone of fighting some kind of perceived oppression from just men in general, like men just oppression, like Captain Marvel, right? Go all the way back to what was that, 2018 or whatever. It's like
yeah.
the whole subtext, right, is all her life men have oppressed her, but they show like the most innocuous situations, like a guy winked at her, you know, you know what I mean, like her father reprimanded her because she did something reckless. It's like the most nonsensical, uh, you know, like nothing things, but somehow we're supposed to feel some kind of way, like, oh man, she's been going through it her whole life. It's like,
Yes.
no, not really. She's had a pretty decent life, actually. Yeah. Then on top of that, she becomes this military pilot, and sadly, yeah, she gets an explosion, but it leads to her becoming more powerful. Right? But she doesn't lose anything. Well, she loses her friend, I guess. That's about the only, you know, uh, her captain, right? But it's like, and they don't even really get into that. Like, it's they treat that like it's just a, oh, okay, yeah, she's dead now, So it's like, I don't know. It's so, but like I said, with that, they're trying to say so many things without saying it, right? Because you know, but they lack subtlety, right? So it comes off as just pretentious. You know, so leftists are trained to grab power, so their stories are encouraging that. Yeah, that's true. That is the underlying sort of philosophy of communist, socialist, Marxist ideology is to seize the means of production, right, or power, and yeah, and that's when you look at it, that's kind of what Captain Marvel was, right? It was all about her somehow seizing this power, even though she already had power, quite a bit of it, but somehow she sees more power. I don't, it's an odd movie. you know, um, it's a very strange movie. And it's like, it's like you watching it, you're just kind of like, okay, this stuff happened, right? But yeah, it is. And that's, I think, and that's part of, I think, like it's so subtly ingrained, right? Because a lot of this comes from our institutions, right? Our education institutions that it's just embedded, and how do you like strain it out, right? You can't, it's like putting, cyanide in a big pot of soup, you know. How do you get the cyanide out? You can't, right? You just gotta toss the whole thing, and so that's how ingrained it is, and and it's in a lot of media, even media that we tend to like. It's there, even media where the stories are actually good. It's still there, you know. It's just presented better, right? It's done more effectively, where they wrap a good story around it, right? So we accept it, maybe that's something we can talk about next time, is some of the shows and movies where it's still there, that feminist dogma, or Marxist dogma, because it's all Marxism, I mean, ultimately, but it's presented well so that you kind of accept it. You're like, oh, okay, like you don't really resist it, right? Because it was wrapped in actual good story. And that's the thing. If they at least told good stories, right?
Yeah.
we
I
would,
mean,
we would be more receptive, I guess, right?
I think no matter what, I mean, people are going to tell stories based off of their personal belief systems. But it's like you said, it's like if if your only goal is to convince somebody of an idea, then write a book or be a public speaker or something. But
Yeah,
don't make a movie. But even then, most things in life require you to be be a good storyteller, right?
yeah. For the most part,
Even marketing
yeah.
requires storytelling.
Especially
Even
talking about corporate or white collar type jobs. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
but even then, it's like one of the things one of my mentors at this community center I used to work at just told me, it's like when you're telling people about yourself, it's like you're not selling when you're selling a brand, you're selling a story, right? And that
Right.
includes
That's right.
when you're talking about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's like most aspects of life require you to be a good storyteller, right? So it's like if you don't have that experience in the real world, like dealing with real life situations, then you're not gonna excel in it in the fictional sense, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like I feel like I said, if you're not a good storyteller in general, then I mean, even like if you're not a good storyteller, it doesn't matter what ideas you have, even if they're good ideas. Uh, nobody's gonna pay attention. Nobody's gonna care because
Yeah.
you don't know how to present that idea.
Yeah. It's unless it's just a incredibly compelling idea, right? Yeah. You have to be able to present it and tell a compelling story to get people pulled in, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's so funny. They choose to be so kind of on the nose with a lot of things, and um, as Rosmain says, these Hollywood leftists, right? Um, it defeats their goal, right? That you're trying to win people over, but you do the exact opposite because you don't know how to tell a story that resonates with people, right?
yeah,
It's very ham-fisted a lot of times. Like the Batgirl series was a good example. Right? It was like so sort of on the nose with so many things. It's like, okay, we get it. It's just eye-rolling cringe, and you know, but yeah, middle American problems. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I always say, first world problems. It's like there's so many more important things going on in the world, you know, and but you would think that racism is around every corner. And women are being kidnapped and off the street and put into slavery or something, like. But we have a term called microaggressions,
yeah.
and there's classes and trainings, like it's like this is not a problem. Mistaking your ethnicity or race, for something else is, that's the least of your worries, right? Like not being able to pronounce your name properly, it's not oppression, right?
No,
It's not even disrespectful, right? It's just something that happens. It's life, right? Like, but you let others tell it, and it's just the worst thing in the world. It's like, oh my god, we still have so far to go. It's like, no, we don't actually.
I used to work I used to work in the nonprofit space through AmeriCorps and whatnot, and
Yeah,
it was an interesting experience. I don't regret it, but we used to have these meetings every Friday. I mean, I guess if you want to, you could call them DI meetings. I don't really care. But the point is that most people were always late. Most people were always late to the point where we had to have not one, but not two, but three intervention meetings to like try to justify or like try to get people to come in on time. It's like, hey, well, I have to do this and my anxiety that,
Yeah.
and 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 I just want to say that like it got to the point where like, why are we having interventions about showing up to work on time? And it's like, like it's some kind of like, like it's not just show up to work on time. And it's like I never participated in it because at this point in time I was living at my uncle in a whole different part of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no mattress. I had to throw on my old bed because it got moldy. I was sleeping on the floor. I had to take 2 to 3 buses and a train just to get to work. Wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. And I was always the first person there. I was always
Yeah, but
an
that's
hour.
different.
Yeah, it's different because I care. That's why it's different.
No,
Because I
they
had
were going
standards.
through some kind of oppression
Most of these people
and
don't even have families.
microaggressions, and that kept them from being on time.
Most of them don't even have most of them live closer to the area that I do.
Yeah, but you don't understand. You just,
And it's like, just show up to work. We're not even doing real work. We're just talking about, the.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like I said, first world problems.
But it's like,
Like
I just.
Roosevelt says, micros I can handle. Yeah, like
My,
I mean, I don't even like that term. It's so silly. Like micro, like what? What is that? Like is it a flicker of the finger when you hit? Microaggression. I don't know. It's stupid. It's like we don't need to define. What are basically just mistakes, right? Like mistakes that happen in a conversation. You know, like
like
it's
it's one thing if someone does it on purpose, but even then, it's like, if you're an adult, then you have to realize at some point that not everything deserves your reaction, right?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's context matters, right? Like, yeah, if we're talking about someone who is aggressively in your face, and they're calling you all kinds of names, that's a different dynamic, obviously, right? So you
But
handle it
it's usually not that though. But even then,
right.
it's like,
Most of the time, it's not like 99.99%. It's not that,
yeah.
and if it is that, it's probably instigated. Like meaning like both parties are not innocent, right? There's a mutual offending taking place, right? So it's like most people uh, want to just get up and live their life, right? Go to work, be with their families, do something fun, take a vacation. I don't know, or sometimes just survive, right? Like just hey, like I just want to be able to, you know, pay my bills and live in peace, right? Not have to worry about my safety, right? And but then we get these, you know, they used to call them social justice warriors, right? And it's like there has to be an oppressor or a boogeyman, or else they're irrelevant, you know. And I think that's part of what drives why it continues um, to be a thing. It's because it kind of they have to make it a thing, or else they lose their jobs, right? They lose their relevance, So, um, but the reality is, I think, in my opinion, most people, either you're just gonna leave people alone or you're gonna cooperate with people, right? And there's a few that choose to be jerks. Sure, that's unfortunate, and I think they'll be dealt with accordingly. Right? Like, I think most people will, you know, do what needs to be done, or I don't know, cuss them
Well,
out, whatever, right?
I mean,
you
when it comes to selling differences, whether it's racism or just people just having different lifestyles, at some point you just need to allow people to live out the consequences of their own actions. So if
Right.
they
That's
don't,
that's true. Yeah, that's a very good point. And but it's hard to do that because, like I said, the prevailing mentality is, you know, it's there's some type of oppression happening. If you're not thriving and making a lot of money, and you don't have this position, something's wrong. So it's because someone took it from you, right? What's the saying? Who was it? I wish I could remember who said it, but it's like you see a skinny guy and a fat guy standing next to each other, and you think the skinny guy is the way he is because of the fat guy. Like he's skinny because the fat guy is fat. Like the fat guy keeps stealing his lunch. It's like, well, no, that's not how the world works, right? Like, you know, you know what I mean? Like, that's not reality. And a
yeah,
lot of times, though, a lot of people do have that perception, though, that I'm poor because they're rich. And it's like, well, not exactly, right? Um, there's context to a lot of things, so because ultimately you just got to do what you got to do, despite what forces may be working against you. And right now, the biggest force working against us is the government. So, but that's another conversation. you know, yeah, Rosmain says fat cats. Yeah, like yeah, there's fat cats out there, but a lot of times they're fat because of their own efforts, right?
yeah,
Both figuratively and literally, right? Um, and that's that. But they're being fat, or being rich, doesn't negate your ability to become rich, right? It doesn't diminish your capabilities, right? It's like but part of that comes, like I said, it's so ingrained in our institutions where in school you think, well, that kid's the popular kid and he's the captain of the football or basketball team, and it's like it's just that one role that you have to strive for, and if you don't get it, then something's wrong with you. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works in the real world, right? You can
yeah,
excel and be a captain of an industry, of multiple industries, right? You could, like just because Jeff Bezos is a billionaire with Amazon didn't stop Elon Musk from starting Tesla and becoming a billionaire, right? You understand? Like they're both billionaires at the same time, and they're both basically technology companies, right? Same thing with Bill Gates. Yeah, I mean, you understand Warren Buffett.
yeah,
It's like they're all very rich because of their own efforts. Whether it's by crook or hook, that's another conversation. But I'm just saying, it doesn't negate our ability to thrive and be successful. Even I'm not saying we can all be billionaires, no, but some of us can, you
I
know. But
well,
that's all, it doesn't negate our ability, but I think sometimes that's a perception that is encouraged, in the current sort of zeitgeist, is that yeah, like somehow their being rich is responsible for us being poor, or there's this unfairness, and it's like there is an unfairness, but like I said earlier, it's mainly comes from government, right? It's the government, because the government picks winners and losers. So.
well, no matter where it comes from, you know, I was I recently started watching a show called Hajime no Ippo. It's a boxing anime.
Wait, say it again.
I said I just started watching this show called Hajime no Ippo. It's a boxing anime.
Say that name again. Say it.
Hajime no Ippo.
Say it 5 times.
No. Anyways, the coach said something in that show. Said something that resonated with me and my personal life, just getting back in shape, but also just working in general. And he said, he's talking to everybody. He's like, look, not everybody who works hard will succeed. but I tell you that everybody who has succeeded has done so by working hard. And you know, it's true, and it's hard to believe that, especially in the time of virality, right? But
Yeah.
even people who go viral, not everybody who goes viral takes advantage of it, right? It's the people who are have the foresight to turn their virality into a business opportunity and connect with people. They're the people who end up succeeding and being able to live off of their virality, right? So, and
Mhm.
that requires work. It requires building a brand. It requires, you know, engaging your audience. All that is work. So, yeah, I mean, it's success is not guaranteed, but the only way to succeed is working, and there's no really other way around it. And
Yeah. You got to
it's
go to work.
it's funny because around that the time that I was watching that episode, I was watching. I saw this footage of this interview of this civil rights activist from like the 50s or 60s,
Hmm.
and like she really said like my parents were great at being businessmen, but I excelled at being an activist. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist of it. And I had to think to myself, well, where has that gotten you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's crazy because it's like, yeah, a lot of when you look back, a lot of free black people at that time, like after um, the Civil War and stuff like that. A lot of them were they were trying to start their own businesses. They became uh, you know they started family businesses and stuff like that, either as like carpentry or whatever it was. But then like at some point the children decided not to take up the business and become activists. And there's nothing inherently wrong with uh fight for what you believe in, but at the same time, it's like, uh, why sacrifice one for the other?
Right.
So it just feels like that was unwise. So, but yeah, it's like you can't escape work. Um,
No, it's unavoidable. If you really want to get what you want out of something, out of life, you have to put in the work.
yeah,
And sometimes work is easy, and sometimes it's very hard. you know, it just, but it's in especially for men, it's not just about sort of achieving this goal, right? It's really about the work involved in achieving that goal. It's the process, and so enjoy the process and enjoy striving towards, because that's where you'll feel the most alive. It's when you're striving toward that goal. Because once you get it, you're gonna be like, oh, that's it, right? And you're gonna find another one, So, but while you're striving, that's when you're living, So, so yeah, just go for it, man, and don't let any excuses hold you back, you know. Um, but yeah, so we're going on 12:30 or 12:23. Um, went kind of long today, but very excited. We started our campaign. It's live now. You can go there and get you some merch and back our book. Anything you can do is appreciated, and we thank you for it. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. My email should be there on the site. Um, and also, you can reach out to me on Twitter at the Alphatron. And there's more to come. Like what you see there is just the beginning. I got some more stuff coming. We're gonna have some trading cards featuring some of our key characters, and I'm finishing up those right now. So I'm gonna be posting that hopefully by this afternoon, and we're gonna do some posters as well. And cover B, if you look, you'll see it's just a rough because the artist is still working on it. And but even the rough, you got to admit, looks pretty cool. So I can't wait to see the finished product. It's going to be beautiful, and that's going to be available as well. So just know if you want to get cover B, you can go ahead and order it. And but that's not going to be the final. That's just the rough, just to, as a placement for now. And we're going to put the final there once it's done, and you'll be getting that final. So, but yeah, very exciting. We hope that you'll come with us and sort of join the ride and help us achieve this goal, back our book, so we can get it drawn out and finished and printed and in your hands, so you can read it and enjoy it. Um, I promise you won't regret it. I really believe you're going to love the story. It's a really awesome story. So uh, check it out and go to fundmycomic.com. And if you go straight to the site, you'll see, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see our listing, and you just click on that. That takes you to our page. Or if you go to Twitter, you can get the direct link at Twitter at the Alphatron, or on Facebook. So yeah, check it out, and we hope you like what you see. And but yeah, I think there was one more thing we were gonna bring up.
No, that's it.
That was it. You sure? I thought
Yeah.
there was another thing.
Oh,
Oh
actually,
yeah, no,
did you?
we're gonna talk about Transformers. Remember?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can save that for next week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got a few minutes, but the main thing we were gonna bring up was the fact that it looks like it basically flopped, right? Like it did do
Yeah.
well. The
It,
opening weekend was like 24 million, which is terrible. I think the
but
budget
yeah,
was
but
like
it was
75
poor
million.
marketing that really killed it.
Yeah, that's what I keep seeing. Those are the comments I keep seeing. And I think Clownfish brought that up, Clownfish TV, that it just wasn't marketed properly. Like a lot of people saw it as just a children's movie,
Well,
and
yeah. I mean, they
versus
didn't
seeing
advertise it
it
like an
as a
action adventure movie.
yeah, like, but not seeing it as a general audience, uh, yeah, action, theatrical release. It was kind of like, oh, this is just a kind of a this is for kids. It's going to be goofy, and it's like, but then a lot of people did go see it, and they're like, hey, this is actually really good, right? It's actually a solid movie. It's very good. It's entertaining, and it's not just for kids, like for young kids. It's for everybody, right? And that's unfortunate because you know it does look cool. Yeah, maybe the visuals could be better. Like they could have bumped it up a little bit with the aesthetics, but um, yeah, I want to check it out. I've been seeing clips since it's released, and they look really good. So I do plan to see it at some point. I just have to make time. But that's one thing I want to clarify with us too. I don't want to fall victim to that perception that what we're doing is just for kids. It's not. It's for everybody. It's for young and old alike. It's for general audience. It's for everybody, and it's not catered to young kids per se, right? It's really for everyone. There's enough story, like enough sort of meat, as you will, in that story, the story we're writing. That's going to keep you engaged. So just understand, like we're not trying to dumb down the story or anything, because that tends to be a thing too when people try to write for a younger audience. We're not writing for a younger audience, but we're writing so that
With a younger audience in mind.
in mind, right? We're including them so that they can read it and enjoy it, and parents don't have to worry about any kind of inappropriate visuals, right? But it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really cool fights, adventure. Um, it's all gonna be in there. So just know that it's for everybody, and there's gonna be so much there. And this is a big story. Like this is just issue one, and our goal is to do at least three installments. And each installment is going to be 50 pages plus. So you're talking about 150 pages, um, total three issues between three issues. And then there's more beyond that, but we're trying to keep it concise, but we also want to give you a lot of story so that you're not just getting a little floppy and it's just 20 pages. We want to give you something you can really chomp on and enjoy for a good while and get into. So I hope you guys will join us and support it and help us get to that goal, to get it funded and get it produced. Um, yeah, Resume makes a good point. He says, "What marketing?" Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I've only
You
saw
what more?
yeah, I only saw the trailer on Twitter, and that was because someone shared it from YouTube, right? But it's like, yeah, I didn't see like billboards, things like that.
No,
So it maybe they were, but I didn't see them. I didn't notice them, and maybe part of it is just timing. Maybe we just weren't
no,
looking
it was
for it.
bad. It was just bad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe, yeah, the marketing just is probably, and who knows, that could be a reflection of, uh, sort of how they perceived it too. They probably didn't expect it to do great,
Which is
so they don't want to put the
it's
money behind
it's
it, right? So yeah, that is unfortunate because they
never
probably
take
figured, look,
Hollywood to the races. That's all I have to
yeah,
say.
because look, they're gonna release it. They know it's not gonna make money, but they're gonna write off their losses.
Where's the thing?
Then
It
they'll
could have
make
made
their
money
profits in
if they
direct
promoted
sales,
it
DVD,
correctly.
excuse me, DVD and Blu-ray and all that stuff and streaming.
Here's the thing that is like they okay for certain movies that we know now are pretty bad. They went out of their way to create to to do these crazy campaigns. Like I remember when what was the Elemental, the weird Pixar movie where it's like, what if the
Inside Out.
elements could talk? No,
Oh yeah, yeah. What was that?
yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah. You don't remember it, but I remember Disney put out a fake like TikTok short where people they put like this fake audience reaction to one of the characters where
Right.
everybody was just applauding when this character they've never seen before showed up. And you're like, what is this? Like, this isn't real. Like,
Right, but they went through all that trouble, and the
yeah.
movie. I
And
mean,
nobody remembers the movie now.
yeah,
Nobody
yeah, but
cares about
it didn't do
Elemental.
well at all, right? I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but they
So,
put all this
but for
marketing behind it. Yeah, it's kind
yeah,
of weird. It is. It is a weird.
that's what I'm saying.
You know.
Never take Hollywood to the races because they'll just bet. They'll bet on the wrong horse
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. I agree. They don't. Like Lightyear is a good example. I mean,
Yeah.
that should have been lit, man. Like, how excited I was when I saw the first trailer, and I was thinking, okay, that looks pretty good. That looks. And then as time went on, I was like, oh. And then I went to watch
yeah,
it. It was like, oh, like
yeah.
this is not good.
It was
It's like,
stupid.
yo, what are they doing? Right. So I don't know, but yeah, they marketed the heck out of that. Right. That was, that had all the support, and it was terrible. And it's like, what? I don't know. Yeah, but you're right. They bet on the wrong horse all the time. It seems, and I think it's like they bet on the wrong horse, and then they kind of get lucky with some things, right? So it's like the things that we do see that are good, it's just luck. It's just pure luck. It's not like they actually knew it would be good. Like the Joker movie, I think is a good example, right? They probably didn't expect that to be as good as it was, the first one,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it hit $1 billion, right? And so they go, okay, we're definitely going to do a sequel and all this kind of stuff. Then the sequel is like, what is this garbage?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And they bring in Lady Gaga and all this stuff, because they want to do Harley. And it's like, what are they doing? Like, it's like they capture lightning in a bottle. Then they take it and they smash the bottle against the wall. Like it's like, hey, I got it. And then he goes smash, and it's just that's it.
uh,
They don't realize what they have, right? So they completely destroy it. And yeah, it's like it's very weird. So Rosemarie says people passed on Elemental because of the Pride logo. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I mean,
I don't even remember
honestly,
that. I
yeah,
just I
honestly
didn't
don't
really.
remember it being.
pay
I
that much
guess it.
attention to it.
I guess that was how. Maybe that was how it was marketed. Maybe that it was something. You know. For
No,
pride, I guess. But I don't. Yeah, I
I
don't
don't really
recall
remember.
that to be.
I just think it was uninteresting. It was just an
Yeah,
uninteresting
to
looking
be honest, the
movie,
characters were
and then
not
they
big
tried
looking.
to
Yeah,
and
I
it
agree.
was artificial.
When I saw the trailer, I just didn't. It didn't resonate for me. So
I never
um,
saw the trailer. I don't even remember if there was a trailer.
yeah, not even stereotypically. Yeah, yeah. They weren't. They weren't. They just weren't. Yeah, I agree. It just wasn't appealing. Um, you know, and I don't know what else to say. It just, yeah. Even now, it's like sometimes there's things where you go back and you're like, oh, let me watch this. But it's like I don't even care to go back and watch it. And I love Pixar. Pixar, they're legendary, but yeah, they've been having a lot of misses lately. So not sure what the deal is. Well, I think I know part of it is because of Disney and their agenda. But yeah, but even then they're still they used to be very good storytellers, and I'm not sure. I think because certain people are not there, like Ed Catmull's been gone for a long, and then now they've lost Lasseter, and they do still have a couple of guys I think that are kind of from their first iteration, but you know, it's a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Well, that's IMDb. I don't really trust IMDb.
Yeah, I was like,
uh, you know, but okay. I mean, because IMDb is like industry people, so is it really like what is it on Rotten Tomatoes? The audience score, I wonder. That'd be interesting to look up. But yeah, it's I don't know. Hollywood's weird. There's you know, but yeah, Pixar kind of lost its luster, unfortunately. So hopefully, I'm hoping they'll get it. Honestly, I feel like it'd be nice if they can just break away from Disney, or if well, we already saw last year was going to was it Skydance, I think, right? Um,
isn't that his studio?
well, he's there now. He's like,
Oh, okay.
and now I think they're supposed to be merging with Paramount. Like, and they're working with Apple, streaming. So they're doing big things. So we'll see, what comes down the pike with them. And is, he left it under a lot of controversy, but I don't think people are gonna. I don't know. I see comments on Twitter. People are still like, "Oh, he's this and he's a pervert, whatever." It's like, well, you know, I don't know. I don't
I
know
mean,
how much of
is
that was
that true
true.
or is that just rumors?
I don't know. Well, a lot of it was accusations, and I'm like, well, I don't give a lot of credence to accusations because I'm like, well, did you call the police? Is there an arrest record?
Yeah, why?
Like, so and that's like I said, that's a whole other uh, can of worms, so to speak.
Yeah,
But I'm like, look, the guy, you know, he's still working. He's got to make a living, and he's incredibly talented. So it's just makes sense that someone else is going to go. You know what? They're all accusations. Nothing was proven. There's no, I don't even think there was a lawsuit. Like, you understand? So
yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, come over here and bring that talent, and we're gonna make cool stuff, right? Like, so we'll see. A lot of people are, you know, Rosmi said there's a generation that just doesn't want to be touched at all. Yeah, that could be. I think it's not even that they don't want to be touched. I think it's like I said, it's the culture that's been created that encourages that, right? It's like we can get into the nuance of male female dynamics, right? Like if you're a handsome guy, it's flirty, and if you're an ugly guy, it's creepy, right? Like that's, and I kind of feel like that may be the case with John Lasseter. Is maybe he's not seen as you know the Chad that maybe he thinks he is, or I don't know, and that's what sparks it, or it could have been just opportunistic, or there could be some legit complaints, right? We don't know, right? But at the end of the day, if he didn't do anything criminal, he's still walking the streets. It's like, okay, I mean, what can you really do beyond that? Like, other than just be mad at him for something that you had nothing to do with anyway. And a lot of the people that are commenting is like, well, you don't even work there. Like you weren't there, so you know it's you take it with a grain of salt. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But like I said, if you don't like the mainstream anymore, hey, check us out. We're over here and we're struggling and scrapping and scraping and fighting and trying to build something awesome for you to be entertained by and enjoy. So help us out, right? So I'm going to call it and say thank you for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for the conversation. Once again, thanks for Osmane. Thanks for the engagement, man. You're a cool guy, so appreciate it. Um, and thanks, guys, for joining us. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Check out our campaign, fundmycomic.com. Look for a super galactic, fantastic dimension. And check us out. Help us out. And yeah, make it a super galactic Saturday.
We'll see you around.